Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBassVideos.com coming at you today with another lesson. And this is the 7th lesson in my Chromatic Approach Notes course. Today's lesson is a review of all of the previously learned chromatic approach note combinations as applied to the minor 7th chord. So with that in mind, grab your bass and let's get started. We're now ready to take a detailed look at all of the previously discussed chord qualities and their respective approach note combinations. In this lesson, we'll focus on all of the various approach note patterns as applied to the minor 7th chord. This will be broken down in the following way. Identify and analyze all of the previously discussed shell patterns and then learn how they fit over minor 7th chords, along with the practical application of all of the previously discussed approach note combinations and how they work over minor 7th chords specifically. The first chromatic approach note combination that we're going to review is the double chromatic approach from above. Now remember, we looked at this in the first lesson of this course, specifically over a minor 7th chord. So we're just going to review this and look into the finer details of the shell pattern and the line study, so this sort of solidifies this pattern for you over a minor 7th chord. So let's go over the chord tones because we can play them different ways. These shell patterns may dictate a specific fingering, so I want to show you some of the different ways that we can do this, and always bear in mind that this is a good thing to go and review. So we've got this. I've got the pattern that I can play here. I could also play it like this. Then I could do it from here, from the 4th finger, or like this. So just good to know where you're at and get the real basics and the foundation of the actual arpeggio fingerings together, because you might want to alter these in the various specific line studies, because the shell that we're using and then the approach note combination we're using together may yield a specific fingering for the arpeggio that's just not maybe one option. So you need a few options, and this is what's important about this. Now, if we review the shell pattern of this, what we had was the ascending 4-note inversion. So this goes like this. We're at the root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. And then I did the root position up to the flat 7, and that takes me to my 2-octave point of my arpeggio. The descending line was a little bit different. What we had here is a broken arpeggio line where I'm going 5, 7, 5, 3. Okay, 5, 7, 5, 3. Then 3, 5, 3, root. 3, 5, 3, root. Root, 3, root, 7. Root, 3, root, 7. 7, root, 7, 5, 7, root, 7, 5, and then 5, 7, 5, 3, 5, 7, 5, 3, and then I'm back home. So again, if I have those 4-note inversions, come back down with the permutation. This is a great exercise to practice in and of itself. And it's good because it gets the sound in your ears and it starts breaking up the arpeggios a bit. So a little bit more to tempo. So I want you to work that out in every key. It's very important that you do this. Okay, if we then review the line study, this is the double chromatic approach from above, And what we're doing is we're hanging those on the first note of each one of those 4-note groups, both ascending and descending. So that's the way that you kind of understand. That's the anchor point that you want to relate to when you're trying to come up with these ideas on your own. And it's a very good way to study lines and create lines, because you come up with all sorts of permutations and ideas. I'll show you later how just on this one lesson today we could come up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different variations if you want to go down that road. If not, just stick to what I'm giving you for this lesson, and you won't sort of be pulling your hair out perhaps. But if you've gone a little bit further and you think, okay, I took your advice on a few of the further lessons that we had, the few earlier lessons that we had rather, where I said I want you to review these things over all the different chords. If you've already done that, I'm going to give you something different at the end that's going to really expand the possibilities by hundreds. So what we have here is the double chromatic approach from above, and I'm going into the root. And then I play that root position inversion. Then the next one is going into the third. Next one goes into the fifth. Next one goes into the seventh. Next one goes into the root. Okay, when I come back down, now I want the first note in each one of those 4-note patterns. So I'm starting on the 5th here. I go remember I had 5, 7, 5, 3. So I'm going, next is into the 3rd. Next is into the root. Next is into the 7th. Next is into the 5th. Then I'm back home. So I've got this. Faster. Let's go over it really slow. Okay, get this one together, practice it in all keys, work up the tempos, and this one again is just serving as a real strong review, just so you make sure that you understand the real breakdown of all the fundamentals of each one of these approach note combinations. The next approach note combination that we're going to review today is the double chromatic approach from below. Now, as previously stated, when combining some of these shells with different embellishments, it's going to yield a different shell fingering or arpeggio fingering. And this is a good example because this one's going to start from the 4th finger in root position. Then I move up to the 3rd, to the 5th, to the 7th, and then to the root position. 8th VA, I'm going to shift up here and play it like this. So again, when I start descending, I'm going to come straight back down and play 4-note inversions. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going 5, 3, root, 7. 3, root 7, 5. Then from the root 7, 5, 3. Okay, 7, 5, 3, root. And then 5, 3, root 7. And that's what it ends with. So here, a little bit quicker. Let's slow that right down. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to hang those embellishments on the first note of each one of those 4-note inversions. So what we've got here is the double below the third, double below the fifth, double below the seventh, double below the root. I come back down, double below the fifth, double below the third, double below the root, double below the seventh, double below the fifth, and then I'm back home. Slow that right down. Practice. The next chromatic approach note combination that we're going to review is the double above, double below. Now this we haven't looked at specifically yet over the minor 7th chord, and this is the purpose of this specific lesson, is that we're doing all of the 6 approach note combinations that we've previously learned and make sure that we learn them over every single chord that we've learned so far. This is so important, and a lot of times people don't do this hard work, but you really need to do it, and you'll be so thankful that you've gone through it and just persevered, because the results that you'll yield will be quite frightening as a result of doing that. So make sure that you get that together. So what we're doing here is we're going through this shell pattern, and this is a 3-note shell pattern. We're doing these 3-note inversions. So basically what we've got, let's go through the 3-note inversions. I'm going to play it like this. I'm going to start here with the 4th finger, come up to the 3rd here, then 5, 7, root. Okay, we're subtracting the 7th, and we're going straight from the 5, 7 to the root, 3, 5, and then the 3, 5, 7. So again, we've got the root, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, the 5, 7, root. Subtract the 7th, root, 3, 5, and then 3, 5, 7. Okay, coming back down, we're going to be doing it this way. We go 5, 3, root, 3, root, 7, root, 7, 5. We subtract the 7th, and we go 5, 3, root. Okay, So one more time, come from the top, we go 5, 3, root, okay, 3, root, 7, 5, subtract the 7th, we go 5, 3, root. So again, again, these shells unto themselves are great exercises, so make sure that you get that together. Let's just go through that real slowly again. Okay, if we then hang this embellishment on this, we've got the double above, double below. So into the root. Remember, this creates a 7-note pattern. Okay, above the third. Into the fifth. Into the root. Into the third. Okay, then we come back down into the fifth. Into the third. Into the root. And then into the fifth. Okay, real slow, real slow. Okay, get it together, all keys, work this out, come back, we'll do the next one. The next pattern that we're going to review is the double below, double above approach note combination. Now let's take a look at the shell pattern very quickly because it's exactly the same thing that we had on the last one. So we're still going to figure this with the 4th finger, so we've got the 3-note inversions, subtract the 7, okay, descending, back down, so it's just a review, so go back over that, make sure that you're learning that in every key. I know you did that with the previous one, so we won't spend too much time with that. So then when we review the line study, we're hanging that double chromatic below, double above onto this shell pattern. So what I'm going to do here is start it from here. Start with this 3rd finger to get me into that pattern there. And then I'm going to just shifting up, doing the same thing here. Okay, so that's into the 3rd, into the 5th. Remember, we're subtracting the 7th. I'm going to shift up here for the root. For the 3rd, I'm going to just stay right here. Do that all in a single string. Okay, now I'm starting to come back down. So from here, okay, going into the third. There's a little shift here where I switch off with the fingers. So I'm going to start the next approach combination from here, because it gives me the best economy of motion. Okay, and then into the fifth. Okay, so slowly. A little bit faster. Okay, get that together, get it down in all keys, come back, and we'll tackle the next one. The next chromatic approach note combination that we're going to review is the chromatic from below. So if we take a look at this shell pattern, what we've got is a permutation of 3 notes. So what I'm doing is I'm taking 5 root 3, then 7 3 5, then 3 5 7, and then the 5 root 3, and then the 7 3 5. Let's take a look at that again. 5 root 3, 7 3 5, 3 5 7, 5 root 3, 7 3 5. Okay, so when I descend back down, what I'm going to do is go 5 root 3, 3 5 7, 7 3 5, 5 root 3, and then 3 5 7, and then I'm back home. So on the 4th string, you got that little leap net to get that last 3 5 7 combination, but it's good workout and good position shifting practice to do this one. Again, this exercise alone is a great exercise to practice. Okay, so if we hang the approach note from below on the first note of each one of these groups, this is what we get. I got below the 5th. It changes it into this 4-note pattern. Below the 7th. These are very melodic. Below the 3rd. Okay, below the 5th. Below the 7th. Descending back down below the 5th. Below the 3rd. Below the 7th. Below the 5th. Below the 3rd. Real slow. Okay, get this one down, get it down on all keys, come back, and we'll do the next one. The next chromatic approach note combination that we're going to take a look at is the chromatic approach from above. So if we analyze this shell pattern, what we have here is the root 3 5, and then we're coming back down to the root. It gives us a 4-note pattern. 3, 5, 7, 3, 3, 5, 7, 3. Then I go 5, 7, root 5, 5, 7, root 5. I'm going to go ahead and subtract that seventh again, and then I jump up and I go root 3, 5, root, root 3, 5, root, and then I go 3, 5, 7, 3, 3, 5, 7, 3. So then I come straight back down and I'm doing the root 3, 5, root, subtract the seventh and go straight to the 5, 5, 7, root 5, and then the 3, 5, 7, 3. Again, these are really melodic, these lines, and then root 3, 5, root. Okay, so get that down, and then what we want to do along with this is what we've done before, is we're going to take this chromatic approach note from above, and then we're going to hang it on the first note of each one of these groups, and it's going to create a 5-note pattern. If you note, we've got 4-note patterns now, 5-note patterns, 6 notes, and 7-note patterns out of these, which are really cool because it gives you a lot of rhythmic variance. It creates a lot of rhythmic activity within your lines that you're playing. So here I've got this above, so above, chromatic above the root. Now right here is where one of those fingerings that we discussed, remember they said when you have the single above or the single below, you're almost always going to use a single string fingering. But now and again, depending upon the chord that you're playing, you might want to try one of those adjacent ones to adhere to some economy of motion. And here's where I'm going to do that. I'm going to go right here because that's going to give me more positional advantage than not doing it. So we've got this going into the 5th, back up to the root, and then up to the 3rd here. See, here I do it on the single string, coming back down. So now what I've got is this. Real slow. Okay, so I want you to get this down in all keys. Make sure that you're varying the tempos. And look, if you had gone back and done all of these previously to my suggestion in previous lessons, and you've already got this down over the minor 7th in this way, then what I want you to do is take all the different approaches and then put them into every single shell pattern. I'm not going to give you an example on this lesson because unless you're a little bit advanced with this, I don't want to hold it back because it's going to be too much of the black belt unless you've kind of taken that beyond yourself. But you'll see if you take all those different shell patterns, we've got 6 different shell patterns, and then you've got 6 different approaches. So we've only taken one approach per one shell pattern. If you really want to take it beyond, then start putting the different approaches on the different shell patterns. You know, like I said, you might be pulling your hair out a bit by doing this because the workload is quite intense. But if you've got all these down already and this lesson becomes a little superfluous for you, then make sure that you do all the approaches into all the shell patterns. Anyway, get this together, come back, and we'll do an after-action review. That just about wraps up today's lesson, but before we go, let's take a look at what we've learned. At the end of today's lesson, we've learned how to play all 6 approach note combinations over the minor 7th chord. We also took a detailed look at how all of the shell patterns work on the minor 7th chord. We then broke down each one of the previously learned line studies and applied those ideas over the minor 7th chord specifically. As always, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively. I'll be checking in with you next week for Lesson 8, so until then, take care.